Exquisite Corpse. This one's fun. You might be familiar with this one from your childhood. It's a very commonly practiced way of making art amongst children because it doesn't really require any real heavy amount of skill just to do it. But it can be really cool, and whatever skill level you have is perfectly fine. So what am I talking about? Okay. The original version of this was originally a sentence making process where you take a piece of paper and then you fold it into as many panels as you have people in the group that you've gathered. Each person kind of sits in a circle or something like that very frequently, and then you fold it so that just the first panel shows, and the first person writes a word there to start off a sentence. Then they fold it very carefully so only the second one is exposed so that they pass it to the second person. They can't see the first word at all, they just know where to write the next word. And you keep doing this in turn until it finally gets all the way back around, and then you unfold the whole thing and the first person that started it reads what that whole sentence was. As the story goes, the very first attempt to do this kind of thing, the first two words were Exquisite Corpse. That's how it gets its name, as they tell me anyway. But I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure. Now, this is also something you can do as a drawing project, which is the one that I most frequently see with children anyway. But it's a lot of fun in parties of any age. So what you do is you do the same thing as before, but instead of making a sentence where surrealists would say your group's subconscious was making this sentence and all together, instead of a sentence, you're making parts of a figure. Frequently in this version, since you don't necessarily want like 7 different people working and it gets really complicated, typically what you see is only 3 panels. Sometimes 4, depends on what you feel like. Then you fold the piece of paper, usually in a portrait style here, so you have a vertical kind of a plane. And then you fold it into 3 pieces, and the first person draws, usually we start with a head. Head down to shoulders kind of area, but it could be any kind of thing, portrait-ish kind of thing that you want. Doesn't necessarily have to be your typical person. You draw whatever kind of thing you want. Typically these end up being kind of cartoony because you don't have a whole lot of time to do these normally. Then the only difference from this compared to the last style is that all the lines that you get down to that crease that gets up to this metal section, you want to continue those lines just a little itty bit so that when you fold that and nobody can see the first part, the second person will know where their lines need to start instead of just being completely disjointed. It helps to kind of line things up, but you don't know what things are. Say, my button or something might be right at that crease that I've drawn. So I have 2 lines at the side, and then the edge of the part between there, and then the sides and the wrinkles, and all that stuff can be ridiculously impossible to figure out what the heck it was before. So you just have to use your imagination and then figure out what that middle section is going to be when you get to that one. And then you do the same for the third section, leaving the first 2 hidden and the third one only with those little bitty hints, those little hash marks to show where lines continued from the middle one. Then, of course, after that's done, whoever ends up with the third time, or you can pass it again if you like, they'll unfold it and show everybody what kind of crazy thing your 3 panels ended up looking like when they're put together by unfolding them. This one's really great to do as a piece of paper for every single person, of course, instead of the first one that might just be 1 piece of paper, but you can do multiples to make it a lot more entertaining. When you have just 1 piece of paper, it's a lot more of it seems like more of an adult, grown-up kind of thing where you're really kind of meditating, if you will, on the group consciousness and what does it mean about us as a group that we created this weird thing and stuff like that. It can be a lot more entertaining for grown-ups to contemplate the end result, whereas younger audiences are more interested in the silliness of the whole thing. Adults are into that too, of course.